40% of people are deficient in vitamin B12. Stick around for this video to find out how to determine if you are deficient in B12 and what are the best ways to get your B12 levels at optimum. Hi, I'm Dr. Shauna, and welcome back to another video. To make sure you don't miss any of my new videos, hit the subscribe button and click the bell to be notified every time a new video is uploaded. Vitamin B12, also known as cobalamin, is a water-soluble vitamin that is found in animal food sources, such as meats, fish, poultry, dairy, and eggs. It can also be found in breads and plant-based milk that has been fortified with B12. Vitamin B12 deficiency is common in the elderly population, those that aren't getting enough B12 in their daily diet, such as vegans and vegetarians, diabetics who are on metformin, people who aren't able to absorb the B12 in their intestines because they've had some sort of surgery removing part of their large intestine, and those who have been taking antioxidants for a long amount of time. And that is because the stomach acid actually helps separate the B12 out of our food so that it can then be absorbed into our intestines. So vitamin B12 is essential in a lot of different processes that happen in our body. The first one being the production of red blood cells. Now, red blood cells, those are the cells in our blood that carry the oxygen from our lungs out through the bloodstream into all the different organs and tissues of our body. And if we have a reduction in red blood cells, that's typically what we call anemia. And that results in things such as fatigue, low energy levels, dizziness, because we're just not getting the oxygen to our tissues and our organs like we need. Another process is actually for DNA synthesis. Now, DNA synthesis is part of our genes, and it just helps. The DNA forms everything, and so it just helps with every bodily process that we have. The next one, and I would say maybe more important than the red blood cell production, is actually in our nerve function. Now, our nerves, they are covered with a coating. It's called myelin. So it's like an insulation. So if you think of an electrical cord that's insulated, right? A copper wire that has an insulation, plastic insulation around it. That plastic insulation is the myelin that surrounds our nerves. And if we don't have enough vitamin B12, that myelin is not getting formed and maintained, so it'll start to degrade. That'll then cause our nerves to not function and work like they're supposed to. This is also very common in people who suffer from multiple sclerosis or MS, and that's why a lot of B12 deficient patients have symptoms that actually will mimic MS. B12 is also responsible for regulating the levels of homocysteine. Now, homocysteine, if those levels get high, what they will do is they will then increase your risk of heart disease. So by not having enough vitamin B12 in your bloodstream, it will then allow those homocysteine levels to increase, which then will increase your risk of heart disease. So preventing heart disease is even another function that adequate levels of vitamin B12 are going to help with. Another group that will be at risk of vitamin B12 deficiency that I didn't really mention is a group who has a genetic mutation called Mthfr. Now, that mutation, what it does is it keeps the body from being able to what we call methylate the vitamin B12, the cobalamin, to make it then a readily usable form in our body. So vitamin B12 is called cobalamin, but the form of cobalamin or vitamin B12 that our body uses is called methylcobalamin. So if you are not able to, what we say, methylate, like those people with the Mthfr gene mutation, then they're not going to be able to turn the cobalamin in the usable form and will then have lower levels of vitamin B12. Folate deficiency can also be confused with vitamin B12 deficiency because as vitamin B12 levels decrease, your folate levels are going to decrease as well. So when people have symptoms of vitamin B12 deficiency, such as fatigue, low energy, dizziness, nerve issues, people will then supplement with folate, and that will actually help diminish the symptoms of the vitamin B12, but not necessarily raise those vitamin B12 levels up to optimum. Another sign or symptom of vitamin B12 deficiency is going to be trouble focusing or concentrating, because vitamin B12 is so vital in normal brain and nerve function. So as those vitamin B12 levels decrease, you can have things such as poor focus, even depression and mood swings up and down. So besides just the nerves working, it also will affect the actual neurons inside the brain and decrease the function. The signs and symptoms of severe vitamin B12 deficiency are really hard to pick up on because it can take years and years of this very low level of B12 for them to start to develop. So the first thing people typically notice when they have a B12 deficiency is going to be something called glossitis. Now, glossitis is a red or swollen tongue. So if your tongue gets really red and really swollen, you can also start to get some mouth ulcers. That's going to be a sign that you probably want to go and get your blood levels checked to see if you're deficient in B12, or obviously figure out, what other things may be happening causing that glossitis in your tongue. A blood test that is done at your doctor's office is going to be the best way to determine if you indeed do have a vitamin B12 deficiency. Now, if you have a deficiency, there's a lot of different ways that you can get your vitamin B12 levels at optimum. The first one, and probably the best way to do it, is going to be in your daily diet. Now, remember I said there's going to be some people, they don't eat those sources of food, those animal sources of food, to get the vitamin B12 through their diet. So there's going to be the vegans and the vegetarians, but there are some things that they can use with the plant-based milk that is fortified in B12, and then they can also use what's called nutritional yeast. Nutritional yeast is going to help increase those vitamin B12 levels because it is high in vitamin B12, and it's something that a lot of vegans will use to actually make a vegan cheese. Now, when I say nutritional yeast, people start to worry about yeast and, is this going to cause, high yeast and high levels of what we call candida, which can happen in the gut. And it actually is a different form of yeast, so it will not cause those issues. So you really don't have to worry about that if you are prone to have issues with yeast or the candida in the gut. The last two ways that you can get the vitamin B12 levels up to optimum, which for adults over the age of 14 is going to be 2.4 micrograms a day. Pregnant women, it's going to be 2.6 micrograms a day. And for breastfeeding moms, it's going to be 2.8 micrograms a day. So if you're not getting it in your food, you can either supplement with a tablet or a B12 injection. Now, weighing out what's better between a tablet form daily or a weekly or monthly B12 injection is just going to depend on kind of what you're looking for. If you don't like to get injections, obviously the supplements are going to be better. If you're looking for the most cost-effective way to raise your B12 levels, you're also going to want to take the pill form, the supplements daily. Now remember, with every other supplement, I always say make sure you're getting a quality form of the supplement. So it's going to need to be a whole food supplement, not something you're just going to go run and get from Walmart. To see some of my favorite brands of quality B12 supplements you can take daily, they're going to be posted in the description below. The level and the amount of B12 you want to take daily is going to be 1,000 micrograms of B12. The form, remember, it's not going to be cobalamin. It's going to be the methylcobalamin. So when you take it in that tablet form, it's already going to be readily available for your body to absorb it and immediately use it. And taking that 1,000 micrograms a day is going to be just as beneficial as getting it in an injection that actually goes into muscle and goes directly into your bloodstream. Some of the benefits, though, of the injection would be you only have to do it once a week or maybe even only once a month. And it's going to get directly in and it's going to raise those levels up pretty quickly. So I hope this video has helped you understand why vitamin B12 is important, who's at risk, and how to get and keep your levels at optimum. And if you did like it, please hit the like button below, post any questions or comments in the comments section. And as always, remember, healing starts from within.